Subscribe to the channel and hit like right now, because this story is not about a bad season, a wrong strategy call, or a driver past his prime. This is about how Ferrari may be actively destroying the final chapter of Lewis Hamilton's career, piece by piece, mistake by mistake, decision by decision. There are two kinds of failure in elite sport. One is obvious, when an athlete no longer has the talent to compete. The other is far more brutal, when the system around that athlete collapses. Lewis Hamilton is not failing because he forgot how to drive. He is not slower, dumber, or less competitive. What we are witnessing at Ferrari is systemic dysfunction, and Hamilton is trapped inside it at the worst possible moment of his career. At 41 years old, every season matters. Every test day matters. Every relationship matters. And Ferrari seems determined to waste all three. Subscribe to the channel and hit like right now, because this story is not about a bad season, a wrong strategy call, or a driver past his prime. This is about how Ferrari may be actively destroying the final chapter of Lewis Hamilton's career, piece by piece, mistake by mistake, decision by decision. There are two kinds of failure in elite sport. One is obvious, when an athlete no longer has the talent to compete. The other is far more brutal, when the system around that athlete collapses. Lewis Hamilton is not failing because he forgot how to drive. He is not slower, dumber, or less competitive. What we are witnessing at Ferrari is systemic dysfunction, and Hamilton is trapped inside it at the worst possible moment of his career. At 41 years old, every season matters. Every test day matters. Every relationship matters. And Ferrari seems determined to waste all three. Ferrari spent almost an entire year refusing to publicly admit what was painfully obvious to anyone paying attention in 2025. Lewis Hamilton and his race engineer Riccardo Adami were fundamentally incompatible. This was not normal adaptation friction. This was not the usual early season radio tension. This was a complete failure of communication, tone, timing, and mutual understanding. In Formula One, the race engineer is not a luxury. He is the driver's closest ally, translator, strategist, and psychological anchor. When that relationship fails, performance collapses. Other teams would have acted quickly. They would have cut their losses during the summer break, reassigned roles, and protected their driver. Ferrari did nothing. They waited. They watched the problem grow. They allowed frustration to spill onto team radio, into public perception, and ultimately into Hamilton's results. By the time Ferrari finally moved Adami into a different role, the damage was already done. What should have been a proactive fix became a delayed reaction. Removing Riccardo Adami from Hamilton's side solved one immediate issue, but Ferrari somehow managed to replace it with an even bigger one. As the sport enters the most radical technical reset in modern history, Ferrari has no confirmed race engineer for Lewis Hamilton. Instead of clarity, Hamilton is being handed uncertainty. Reports indicate that Charles Leclerc's race engineer, Brian Botzi, will oversee both drivers during the first preseason test in Barcelona. This is not innovation. This is improvisation. The race engineer role cannot be split without consequences. Leclerc loses attention. Botzi becomes overloaded. Hamilton loses consistency. In a testing environment where every lap is precious, Ferrari is asking its most experienced driver to adapt to a temporary solution. That is not how elite teams operate. That is how disorganized teams survive day to day. If this already sounds like a slow-motion disaster, subscribe now. Because what comes next proves this is not a coincidence. It is a pattern. The 2026 era isn't about raw speed. It's about efficiency. Efficiency of energy deployment. Efficiency of airflow. Efficiency of weight distribution. And nowhere is that more dangerous than at Red Bull. For the first time in its history, Red Bull is not a customer team. It's a full works manufacturer. Red Bull Ford Powertrains designs the engine. Red Bull designs the chassis. Red Bull owns the success and the failure. Max Verstappen has been unusually clear about this. He doesn't talk about horsepower numbers. He talks about integration. About how a powerful engine means nothing if the chassis becomes unpredictable. About how weight from batteries changes the balance. About how active aero can make a car feel disconnected if not perfectly synchronized. His language isn't celebratory. It's cautious. Almost defensive. Because this is the first time in his career where everything could go wrong at once. Then came the comments that raised eyebrows across the paddock. Verstappen openly admitted what everyone knows but rarely says out loud. That teams are hunting for illegal performance. That loopholes are the real battlefield. That thermal expansion, energy behavior, and interpretation games are already defining 2026 before a single race has happened. From a sporting perspective, this is business as usual. From a political perspective, it's radioactive. Because Verstappen didn't just describe the problem. He challenged the system. He warned that if Formula One turns into a lawyer-driven championship, if rule clarifications destroy years of development overnight, then the sport loses its meaning. And then he said something far more revealing. He said he has no interest in being part of that. The 2026 season offers something rare: 9 full days of preseason testing. For young drivers, this is development time. For veterans, it is survival time. Hamilton needed these tests to rebuild confidence, synchronize with his engineer, and adapt to radically different cars featuring active aerodynamics, altered power deployment, and new handling characteristics. Every lap without his definitive race engineer is a lost opportunity. Hamilton's greatest strength throughout his career has been long-term relationships. His partnership with Peter Bonington at Mercedes was legendary, built over years of trust, shared language, and instinctive understanding. Ferrari could never recreate that overnight, but they could have laid the foundation properly. Instead, they chose delay, uncertainty, and temporary fixes. At Hamilton's age, you do not get unlimited retries. Sensing instability, Hamilton does what champions do when systems fail: he intervenes. He writes reports. He sends documents. He suggests procedural changes, communication improvements, operational tweaks. The so-called Hamilton files are not ego-driven demands. They are survival tools. But in Ferrari's political environment, this hands-on approach carries a dangerous message. It signals a lack of trust. It echoes a familiar pattern. Sebastian Vettel did the same thing. He involved himself deeply in Ferrari's processes. He pushed for structural changes. He tried to fix chaos from the inside. And we all know how that story ended. Vettel left frustrated, exhausted, and defeated, his legacy at Ferrari defined by what never worked. Hamilton consulted Vettel before joining Ferrari. He knew the risks. Yet here he is, walking the same path, fighting the same inertia, confronting the same institutional resistance. The Mexican Grand Prix provided a perfect snapshot of Ferrari's dysfunction. Hamilton cuts the track while defending against Max Verstappen. The rules are clear. The situation is standard. This is where the race engineer must step in, guide the driver, and prevent disaster. Ferrari does nothing. No instruction to slow. No suggestion to yield the position. They leave the decision to the stewards. The result is predictable. A penalty. Another ruined race. Another opportunity thrown away. This was not bad luck. This was procedural failure. And when the same mistakes repeat across multiple weekends, they stop being accidents. They become identity. If you're starting to see how deep this problem runs, subscribe to the channel. Most coverage stops at lap times. This is about structure, power, and internal failure. After the summer break, Hamilton improves. Not dramatically, but visibly. Fewer mistakes. Better qualifying. More consistent race pace. Aston hinted at progress. Mexico looked promising. And then it all collapsed again. Another miscommunication. Another penalty. Another 8th place. Hamilton is not driving like a defeated man. He is driving like someone constantly compensating for systemic weakness. That is exhausting. And it is humiliating for a 7-time world champion. Ferrari unveils the SF26. New regulations. New concept. New hope. Hamilton takes the car out at Fiorano. The tifosi gather before dawn. Cameras flash. Applause fills the air. Symbolically, it looks like a rebirth. Technically, it is anything but. Ferrari admits this is a spec car. Reliability first. Performance later. Limited flexibility. And once again, Hamilton enters a new era without a stable engineering structure around him. The same pattern repeats under a different paint job. Martin Brundle's comments cut through the corporate varnish. Hamilton needs people who understand Lewis speak. Not literally, but intuitively. Engineers who know what he means before he finishes a sentence. Listening to the radio exchanges from 2025, Brundle's conclusion was blunt: something needed to change, and it should have changed earlier. Ferrari agrees, but too late. And now they are gambling that Hamilton can adapt yet again, at an age where adaptation windows are smaller and margins thinner. Lewis Hamilton is not failing Ferrari. Ferrari is failing Lewis Hamilton. Through poor planning. Through delayed decisions. Through unnecessary improvisation. This was supposed to be a legacy-defining chapter. Instead, it is starting to look like a slow erosion of trust, performance, and dignity. Maybe Ferrari will fix it. Maybe they will appoint the right engineer, stabilize operations, and give Hamilton a fair platform. But time is not on their side. And it certainly is not on Hamilton's. Like the video and subscribe to the channel, because in Formula One, legends don't disappear overnight, they are worn down quietly, while everyone pretends nothing is wrong.